Hi there, it's James from Junior Developer Central, and I want to welcome you back to the Google Developer Scholarship playlist that we've been creating for tracking the progress of what happens on the actual Google Developer Scholarship provided by Udacity. So, in the last video, I explained that I received an email that the course was ending soon, so I really needed to get my skates on and get through the rest of the content. I'd completed the first section, which was completing the Twitter style offline first clone, and then the second part of the course is actually a separate course which is just focused on ES6, which, if you don't know what that is essentially a slightly more modern version of JavaScript. I say more modern, it was kind of implemented around 2015. So ES6, the actual course here has been broken down into 4 parts, and there's quite a lot to it, but luckily for me, ES6 was something that I was already quite familiar with, so I was able to kind of skim through a lot of the content. It's not as video heavy as the first course. It's simply, might be a little explainer video here and there, or a little 60-second intro video, but most of it is actually a lot of reading. So if that's something that you kind of struggle with, or you don't prefer to learn that way, just be prepared for that when you get onto this section. So if we look at the first part, it's actually broken down into 4 separate lessons or modules, I guess. So first of all, I mean, it kind of talks about syntax, functions and built-ins, but I don't think I've actually completed all these 4 lessons now, and I don't think they actually kind of can easily be categorized in that way. There's a bit of overlap in that, which is kind of why it was good to do it all in one go. So yeah, if in ES6 is something that is new to you, then maybe just set aside a weekend or a couple of days just to sit down and go through all this stuff, because I think doing it in one go will help you to kind of absorb that overlap between the different lessons. But yeah, so in lesson 6, you can see here on the left hand side, it's going through some of the new features that are provided in this updated version of JavaScript. And if you haven't come across any of those things before, there is quite a bit to get through. So it talks about different ways of declaring variables, template literals, so different ways to use strings, destructuring, iteration, and different operators like the rest and the spread operator. So if all of that stuff is new to you, then it is probably worth spending a bit of time. There's a few, try and show you one actually, there's a few quizzes through there which are kind of like coding challenges. So they give you a code editor, and you have to kind of obviously kind of complete the challenge that they've kind of set you. And none of those were too taxing really. What I would say about this section as well is it's a lot easier than the Wittr side of things. That was the previous course in this part of the scholarship. Some of those challenges that they set, the coding challenge, I lost my mind really trying to work out where I was supposed to start and where I was supposed to put certain bits of code. So this is definitely easier, and all the kind of the preparation and the information for those challenges is in the lessons as well, so it's pretty straightforward really. So that's the syntax one, and then we move on to functions. So if we just have a quick look in there just to see what you'll be covering in that section. I'll just pause the video and auto plays. So it talks about arrow functions, and also how the this keyword or reserved word differs in ES6. And again, there's a few more quizzes and talking about classes as well. There was some interesting stuff in here which I found useful in terms of how it's these kind of mechanisms of using classes and inheritance in ES6 works. I won't go into it here, but yeah, there was a few interesting points from the trainers who are quite knowledgeable about the kind of inner workings of JavaScript. So I did find that useful to kind of go through those explanations. There's a few little videos that showed how that worked. So that was functions. If we scroll back down, so and then we've got built-ins. So this again was quite interesting, and this is kind of like a bit of an overlap type thing, but it was all about sort of data types, so symbols and sets that are again new features in ES6. But promises are something I would have thought you may know about already, and I don't think that's necessarily an exclusive ES6 feature, because they have existed in JavaScript for a while. But you can see there's, again, 27 lessons with quizzes and things like that, so there's quite a lot to get through. And just to show you what I mean by the that's another video there. So this is kind of an example of like the text way that they kind of present things, and some of the sections are quite long as well. So you're going to need a bit of time to go through if this is new. So luckily, the final one is talking about really how to use these new features in your programs, because even now as we speak in 2018, some browsers won't have all of these new JavaScript ES6 features implemented. So, and you certainly can't rely on users of your site and your application to have the most up-to-date browser will actually run these. So it talks about transpilation here. So basically converting your code or into the previous ES5 version. So this is essentially making it browser compatible for any old browsers for people who might be using your site. So that was quite useful. Essentially all they do really is just say use Babel to kind of do that, and there's a guide on how to do it. There are many other different ways to do it, but yeah, that's probably the most accepted way to do it as well. So that was the 4 parts of the ES6 section or course of the scholarship program. Really useful to do if you were thinking of learning ES6. It's definitely a great place to start, and you might kind of find yourself doing a bit of Googling on top of that to kind of fill some gaps, or when you get stuck with the any of the questions. But if you found this video and you're in this section or just about to start it, feel free to put a comment below this video and I'll do my best to answer any of those questions, because as I said, a lot of that was quite straightforward, as I'd done a lot of ES6 work already. So after you've completed the ES6 course, that's pretty much it, and I think I'll probably just leave it there for this video and summarize my thoughts on the whole process in a final wrap-up video. But if you found this video, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel and like and comment on the video, I'd really appreciate that, and I'll see you in that final video to wrap up the Google Developer Scholarship Program.